Hey guys, Zuko here with the birds once again with another video for Shadowlands 9.2, the upcoming patch. Um, excuse me, we're going to be looking at Druid today. We're going to continue with the Druid train. I did some Guardian Druid stuff yesterday. We're going to look at Resto Druid today. And again, we're talking about within the context of builds that kind of work right now, but will get better in 9.2. And for those of you guys who are not sure what's going on, one of the biggest things happening in patch 9.2 for Shadowlands is that we're getting access to double legendaries. You can have one Covenant legendary and one just regular legendary, one of the other ones that you'd want to pick. So I'm gonna play this here. This is a dungeon that I was doing on my Resto Druid. I did it last night. This is a 9 + 9. My item level I think is like 201. It's really low. Sorry for the Twitch overlay on the left side there. That's just I gotta get rid of that for next time. I didn't even know it was gonna show up, but there it is. There's the talents I'm picking. So I've got like the big ones are Cenarian Ward, Soul of the Forest, and Photosynthesis. I think a lot of people don't pick Soul of the Forest, and this is like my favorite talent for Resto Druid. I'm going to talk just for a second about the burst healing that you can do while I show some of this footage in the background. So I'm doing terribly here. Like if you just watch me, it's pretty bad, the healing. But I haven't healed in this thing in like since basically the last expansion, since BFA. Um, and so I'm a little rusty. I'm working stuff out, but the two main ones that I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about the legendary I chose, and then I want to talk about Soul of the Forest for Resto Druid. In this expansion, it consumes your Swiftmend. When you use it in this expansion, Swiftmend consumes one of your hots and heals the ally. If you have Soul of the Forest, once you use Swiftmend, you get this buff to your next rejuve or your next regrowth or your next wild growth. It makes those three spells one of the you need to pick one, but it makes them incredibly powerful. Excuse me, which is really really cool. So it's a great buff to play with. It creates this little mini game. So basically, if somebody's taking a lot of damage, you swift mend them, and it gets rid of one of their hots, but that's okay. And then you cast like a wild growth, and it's this huge wild growth on the entire team. It almost does double the amount of healing. So I think I just did it right here, actually. You can see. And then photosynthesis is the life bloom talent, where if you put life bloom on yourself, it makes all of your hots go 20% quicker, which is awesome. If you put life bloom on an ally, then every other hot that is on that ally has a chance of blooming and healing them for an extra amount of healing. So there's some real versatility there within the Resto Druid healing kit between these two talents, between photosynthesis, moving your life bloom around, and Soul of the Forest, which is, when do you want to use this Swiftmend buff? And the truth is, you want to use it all the time. You want to use it on cooldown if you can, because it's really, really strong. There's lots of times when I just press Swiftmend and then I regrowth somebody, and it's this massive regrowth that hits them for like 10 or 15k up front, and then it heals them for another like 7k or 4k after that. So it's really, really big that way. I love it. These spiteful guys are so annoying. Spiteful just needs to get away from the game, but anyway, it's fine. So I'm running this Swiftmend photosynthesis build. What's my legendary? Well, the legendary I'm running is actually the Swiftmend legendary. And I'm just gonna pause this for 2 seconds. We're gonna switch over. I'll just show you. I'll just show it to you really quick. Okay, so if you look at here in game, this is me in live game. We've got a couple legendaries here that I'm going to talk about some of the bonuses of these other legendaries, but here's the one that I'm running. So Swiftmend no longer consumes your heal over time, and on top of that, it also extends the duration of your heal over time. So normally Swiftmend, if you want to watch right here, I'm going to put a rejuvenation on myself, and then I'm going to press Swiftmend, and it didn't consume it because I have this legendary equipped. It actually extended it, which is super super cool, and it gave me the Soul of the Forest buff, obviously. Let me show you though how powerful this can be. Let's say I'm going to put Life Bloom on myself, and then I'm going to do a Rejuve and a Regrowth and a Wild Growth, and then I'm going to extend them all. Ready? Here we go. Life Bloom, Rejuve, Regrowth, Wild Growth. Look at all the hots I have. They're all ticking down, and then I press Swiftmend, and it extends them all. It doubles their length. And then I have the Soul of the Forest buff, which is a really, really powerful buff, and I can use it on a regrowth for a massive heal. So this is the combination of talents that I have in action. Soul of the Forest, plus the photosynthesis, plus this legendary. Swiftmen no longer consuming the heal over time effect, but instead it's going to extend the duration of my heals. So it's really incredible. It provides a ton of extra healing and it saves you on mana because you don't have to recast, sorry, you don't have to recast those spells anymore because they get extended all on their own. Really, really powerful effect. Um, I could have thrown in Cenarian Ward there too. If you put Cenarian Ward on and then they get hit, the Cenarian Ward starts ticking, and then you can extend it with Swiftmend. It's kind of like Flourish. So if this is the raid cooldown that most people take for raids, Flourish. It extends the duration of all of your heal over time effects on all friendly targets. So it's like the big AoE, extension. You press like Wild Growth into Tranquility, and then you would extend it all with Flourish. This legendary is like a single target flourish. It extends all the buffs that you have on your character, and it extends them by 10 seconds, which is an incredible amount of time. So this is really powerful in Mythic Plus because let me switch back to the to this here. This is really powerful in Mythic Plus, guys, because um, it's it really can save you mana first of all, but it also just extends some very, very powerful heals. Cenarian Ward is a really powerful, short-lasting heal. Cenarian Ward only lasts like what is it? 8 seconds. The heal for Cenarian Ward is only 8 seconds long. You can extend that to 10 more seconds. Wait till it gets down to like 1 second left, and then boom, you extend it all the way back to 10 again. That's such a strong heal to extend like that. It's such a powerful effect that you're getting from the extension. So this is the legendary that I was running in this dungeon. I was just testing it out. Really, it creates, again, like I said, this little mini game. When do you want to use Swiftmen? You can see I'm looking at the rogue right now. I think I Swiftmend him here. Yeah, I just used it right there. And then I use Wild Growth. So I'm getting the Soul of the Forest buffed Wild Growth. You can see it ticking on everybody right now. Everybody's fine. We're not taking any damage because all the Spitefuls are not hitting us. But the Soul of the Forest talent allows you to take a moment where somebody is about to die. Druid traditionally kind of lacks burst healing, but with this build, there's so much burst healing, guys. You have a couple of hots on somebody, and then you hit them with Swiftmen. The legendary extends all those hots, and then the Soul of the Forest buff gets granted to you from your Swiftmen, and you can use that on somebody else. So if you have two people who are like dying, you Swiftmen the first one to bring him back, and then all of his hots will carry him to full health. And then you can use like a regrowth, a juiced up Swiftmend regrowth on a new target who's also maybe dying, and it'll hit them really hard. It might hit them for like 10 or 12k up front, and then a lot of healing in the back end. Or if everybody's dying at once, then you Swiftmend one person and you Wild Growth the whole group, and it just brings everybody back up to full very, very quickly. It's it's an incredibly powerful combination, and it takes a bit of getting used to. Like if you're not used to playing with it, it can be difficult actually to get used to. But um, I love it. I think it's really, really great. I didn't do it very well. I played it very poorly in this dungeon because I haven't played Resto Druid in such a long time. But that's what we're talking about. That's just the base legendary that you can have right now. What I'm thinking about in terms of the combinations for 9.2, I think the most obvious combination is to take the Celestial Spirits legendary, which takes your Convoke and brings it from a 2-minute cooldown down to a 1-minute cooldown. And the Convoke for Resto Druid, you can see I just used it here on this fight, and it's got obviously 2 minutes left in its timer, but Convoke is very, very, very strong. Um, First of all, when you have the Convoke legendary, you have a higher chance for Convoke to cast significant spells according to your spec. And for Resto Druid, that means Wild Growth and Swift Mend will be cast more frequently. And yes, you can in fact get the Soul of the Forest buff if you get a Swift Mend cast from like if you get a proc from the Swiftman off of your Convoke. So if you press Convoke and it Swiftmans a couple times, you can get the Soul to Forest buff, which is really massive. That gives you your huge wild growth or a really huge regrowth on one enemy or one ally. Sorry. So you can see here, there's everybody's taking a lot of damage from this fight. I'm trying to work out how to fix it, but um, it's just been so long since I've played this, but it's going well. The dungeon goes very well. We do end up timing it just fine in the very end. There's a moment coming up that's actually really dangerous, and I'll show you in a minute. I think after this pack here. We do this pack just fine. Um, but I wanted to talk just really quickly before we get to the dangerous moment. I'll show you kind of how the Swiftmen legendary really works in action. There's another legendary that is a buff to wild growth. So it basically says whenever you cast wild growth, I believe there's a 40% chance that your next regrowth or your next rejuvenation will be cast on 3 allies instead of just one. So you get 2 additional targets, which again saves you mana and provides a bunch of instant healing to the group, which is really powerful. Really powerful. So that's another fun legendary that I might want to mess around with. It's probably better for raid, if I'm honest. Here I'm channeling Convoke right now. See, Convoke just brought everybody back to life. I think that the Wild Growth legendary is probably better for raid, um, because you're going to be casting Wild Growth a lot more in raid because you're going to be, there's like 15 or 20 targets, and so you want to be casting Wild Growth more as much as you can. Hey, Glow, how you doing? So bottom line is, I think that legendary is probably better in a raid scenario. It's not bad in Mythic Plus though, because if you get three regrowths out for free, like that's a lot of healing. Regrowth is such a powerful spell. So the other legendary that you can think about is the one that just spreads rejuvenations all across the raid. So that's the most common raid legendary, I believe, that um, Resto Druids are going to take. The one Resto Druid that's in our raid comp right now, she ran the Rejuvenation Legendary. This is a really rough moment. Hold on. If you want to look at this, this is a really nasty moment in the dungeon where I had to sort of focus up. And so I think I extended all the hots in the tank because he was dying really quickly. This is the versatility of the build, guys. You can, whoever is dying, you can just hot them up a whole bunch, and then you can hit them with the Swift Mend, and then it'll just extend all their hots and continue to make them alive. Make them alive? Keep them alive. I can't talk right now. But yeah, the other legendary that I was thinking about for raiding in particular, you're gonna want that Rejuvenation legendary. It's it's really strong. It basically says that whenever rejuvenation ticks on an ally, it has a 2% chance to just spread a new rejuvenation to another ally. So like if you have the Convoke legendary, it's going to pick rejuvenation quite a bit in raid. You're going to get probably 5 or 6 rejuvenations out just with one Convoke. And then you can blanket the raid with a couple of other rejuvenations just normally. And then you could flourish the whole thing. So let's say you have 10 rejuves out and then you flourish them, which extends all of them. That's crazy. Your chance of proccing the Rejuvenation Legendary is very high. I mean, 10 rejuvenations all ticking, you're going to get them spreading, guys. They're going to be spread all over the place. So your chance of having like many rejuves out is very strong with that combination. I think Convoke plus just about any of the Resto Druid legendaries that you want to pick um, is a very powerful combination. So there's lots of like room for you guys to pick and choose kind of whatever you want to do, which is great. Like that's what we want, right? We want choice. We want to be able to have the ability um, to sort of pick and choose what legendaries are like ones that we like, just playstyle wise. Um, yeah. Let me look at. I'm just gonna pause this again for a second, and I'm gonna go back to the live game. So um, I just want to look at. There's the rejuvenation Lego that I was talking about. It's a 2.5% chance to create a new Lego. Sorry. And then there's the other ones too, like Life Bloom can go on 2 targets, which is a really cool idea. That's what you would take photosynthesis with that, right? So you can Life Bloom yourself, and then you can Life Bloom the tank, or you could Life Bloom 2 tanks if you were raiding. very powerful for that, but it's sort of a very specific legendary. This is the wild growth one I was talking about, 40% chance. Um, oh, 3 additional allies. I'm sorry. So it goes to 4 targets in total. It's even better than I said. So your regrowths or rejuves can go to 4 additional. This is really good in raid. Here's a Swiftmem one I was thinking about. With Celestial Spirits, I think it's just sort of a no-brainer to take Celestial Spirits. The other Covenant legendaries, let me just touch on this for a second. There might be a world in which Adaptive Swarm is like okay, but really, like I was saying before, this is kind of weak because it's not a 100% chance. I said this in another video. If this Adaptive Swarm legendary was a 100% chance to spread Adaptive Swarms, then this would be fine. But it's not, and so this makes it kind of bad. It just makes it bad. You could really, what you could do as Necrolord, let's say, if you want to go Necrolord on your Resto Druid, you take the Adaptive Swarm legendary. Obviously, you're going to be able to get it for free, and you combine it with the Rejuvenation one. So this is going to make it so that like your Rejuvenations are always ticking harder, which is really good. Because Adaptive Swarm puts a hot on allies and then also increases all hots on the allies by like 30 to 35%. Excuse me. So it's not terrible. It's just that like this Adaptive Swarm spreading business has to be guaranteed, or else it's just bad in my mind. So unfortunately, this needs some work, I think. The Kindred Affinity one, like I've said in my Guardian Bear video, in reality, this is just good. Stats are always just good. It's just boring. It's just going to be boring. So like this is obviously fine. Taking if you want to go Kyrian just for like the transmog or like you just like the soulbinds or something and whatever you want to do, this is fine. You'll get a lot of stats, a bunch of raw stats, which is really, really good. Nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of boring. Um, and then the Simple Hysteria one, we talked about Ravenous Frenzy in the other video. Ravenous Frenzy, again, from a healer's point of view, it gives you a whole bunch of haste, right? Ravenous Frenzy. It lets you just cast over and over and over again. This could be like really kind of cool for Resto Druid because all the haste would increase the the speed of your hots. They would tick a lot quicker. The problem is usually for healers you want to conserve mana. So haste is like not always a good stat because it burns through your mana quicker. You're casting more spells more quickly equals more mana being used, which is kind of dangerous. Particularly in a raid scenario, you don't want haste at all. So this is more of like a DPS one. I don't think it really applies to Resto Druid as well. I think the clear winner is going to be Celestial Spirits, Convoke the Spirits with the Night Fae. So if we look at the Soulbind, I'm actually running Naya, and the reason I'm doing that, I think most people are running Dreamweaver to heal because you get Empowered Chrysalis. And by all means, guys, this is very good. Don't get me wrong. I think that this is a very good Soulbind to pick, and you get the increased healing by 3% down here, which is again very, very good. You get the cheat death with the Tide Pod thing. It's fine. It's very good. I just like Naya is kind of cool because there's a mastery thing here, right? So when you press Convoke the Spirits, you get 16 stacks of redirected anima, which is 400 mastery. And mastery for Resto Druid increases your healing by a percentage for each of your hots on the target. So the more hots you have on them, the more your mastery kicks in and heals them. So my mastery right now is 8.8%. If I press Convoke, it goes to 15%. So it means that like I have 3 heals on me right now. They're each doing 15% more, 15, 30, 45% more because it would add up 45% more. So you like Life Bloom, Wild Growth. I'm gonna Regrowth. We're gonna Cenarian Ward. I extend them all with Swift Mend. Look how long those things are going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with my Rejuvenation. You multiply that into your mastery. 5 times, well, it's 8 now, but 5 times 15 is 60%. So you can do 60% more healing to like one target. So it's good. You could have F-flow down too. I forgot to have F-flow down. F-flow would add 2 more hots, right? Because you're taking Spring Blossoms. Anyway, I think Mastery is kind of underrated for Resto Druid. It's actually quite powerful. It starts stacking up really quickly, and if you take the Naya Soulbind, it gets you a whole bunch of Mastery, so you can play around with that. Bonded Hearts is also okay. It procced a lot more on my Guardian Druid. It didn't proc very much on my Resto Druid in the Mythic +9 that I did. If we look at let's look at it really quick. Where's the overall? Wait, do I have it here? It doesn't have my huh. That's weird. Anyway, I don't know where the overall went for excuse me, for my heal that I did in the dungeon. Anyway, it's fine. Overall, the Bonded Hearts was not good. It just wasn't. I didn't proc as much as I thought it would. For some reason, on Bear Guardian Druid, it did proc a lot and it healed allies quite a bit. But on my Resto Druid, it didn't. So I don't know what to say there. In terms of conduits, guys, you obviously, if you're going for this Swiftmen build, right? So we're looking at Soul of the Forest. Swiftmen increases the healing of your next regrowth, rejuve, wild growth. If you're taking that, I think this wild growth talent or conduit is extremely powerful. I have a very low version of it, but imagine if you do a juiced up wild growth and then you have the healing fall off um, less over time, much less over time. That's just really good. It means that because wild growth, if you don't know, it says that it heals people and then the healing starts high and then it declines over the duration. This conduit fights against that. It fights against that decline and makes it decline less. So if you have a really strong wild growth, it's really powerful. Um, Let me just show you really quick in the combat log. I just want to show you how the multipliers work. So I want to show you a regrowth. If I just cast a normal regrowth, it does 2600 healing, 2645. Okay, I'm just going to cancel it. So the initial heal was 2645. Now I want to show you a Soul of the Forest buffed wild regrowth. You ready? So 2645, keep that in your head. We're going to cast Swift Mend. Then we're going to cast regrowth. Here comes the regrowth. 8610. It went from 2645 to 8610. That's not even critting. That's just because of the Soul of the Forest buff. Okay, and it would have continued to heal us over time. Now, let's combine it with Nature's Swiftness. Look at the percentages that we're dropping. This is going to be 100% more. Ready? You ready for this? Regrowth. We're going to Swift Mend. We're going to press Nature's Swiftness, and then we're going to regrowth. 16,000 healing, guys. 16,000 just from the base hit of the regrowth. So this is the kind of scaling that you can do with Soul of the Forest. The base amount of regrowth is only 2645, which is okay. It's fine. You hit it with Soul of the Forest, it becomes 8600. You hit it with Soul of the Forest plus Nature's Swiftness, it's a 16k heal without critting. That would crit for 32k. So this is where you can start to see how Soul of the Forest can help you with all kinds of different problems. Let's say your tank is dying. You can Swift Mend and then hit him with a huge regrowth. If he's really dying, you can Swift Mend and then hit him with a Nature's Swiftness regrowth, and you'll basically bring him back from the dead. Like, that's how good it is. This is why I love Soul of the Forest. You can use it for something like regrowth. If the whole group is dying, instead, you can use it on a wild growth. Let me show you a wild growth. Here's a base wild growth. So I'll show you all the ticks. There's all the ticks that it gave. They're around 200. There was a 400 crit there. Let's do a Soul of the Forest wild growth. There's Swiftman. There's a big wild growth. Here we go. They're all doubled. It's doubled in healing. It doubles it. Instead of doing 200 and some, it's doing 400 and some. So again, that's without critting. It's just important to understand how this buff works and how powerful it can really be. When you combine that with Life Bloom and other effects, you can really start to fit together a kit here. And then in 9.2, guys, you're going to see that you can combine stuff like this Swiftman Legendary that I have, where you go Rejuve and Life Bloom and Regrowth and Wild Growth and Cenarian Ward. I've got them all going, and then I press Swiftmen right before Wild Growth is about to time out. Swiftmen, there we go, boom! They all get doubled in duration. Like, that's such a crazy legendary. It's really good for single target healing, really good for tank healing, really good for Mythic Plus, combined with the Soul of the Forest talent. So that's fun, and then you'll be able to do the Celestial Spirits Legendary, which I think is just going to be incredibly, incredibly powerful. It's right here. This takes it to a 1-minute cooldown, and it has a chance to do cast some of the more appropriate abilities. What's it called? Cast the exceptional abilities for your class. So let's just see what it does here. I'm just gonna start casting it. Ready? Boom. There, I did a Swiftman, and we got the Soul of the Forest buff that we can now spend. So now I can just spend the free Soul of the Forest buff. This is what's kind of crazy. Swiftman only has 1 charge. This is the last thing I want to talk about for this build. So, really quickly, let's wait. Oh my goodness, it did so many things. There we go. Holy cow. This is what it did, guys. Look at this. Look at this. The wild growth is what I was doing before. This is what it did here. Rejuvenation, Life Bloom, Rejuvenation, Life Bloom. Obviously, it's ticking them all, but look at how much healing I got of just 1 spell. This is all the healing that came out of my Convoke. Like, what? Anyway, what's really cool about Convoke, as you just saw, is that it can cast Swiftmen for you. In this expansion, we only have 1 charge of Swiftmen. So getting a free charge of Swiftmen is crazy, because it gives you a free Soul of the Forest buff, and you didn't even have to spend a Swiftman to do it. So, like, I'll show you that again. Look, it's already back, because it's a 1-minute cooldown. This is ridiculous. Because we have Soul of the Forest, watch up here. When I press Convoke, it's going to give me Soul of the Forest. Let's just see if we can get near some people. Yeah, let's get over here. Let's do it near some people. So here we go. I'm gonna Life Bloom myself, and then we're gonna Convoke. We got it. There's a Soul of the Forest buff. I got it for free. I'm gonna cast Wild Growth. Then I'm gonna cast another Swiftman and get a second Soul of the Forest buff right away. That's incredibly powerful, and it's a way to not abuse, but it's a way to synergize your Convoke with your Soul of the Forest. So in 9.2, guys, I really think that it's going to be a lot of fun to play around with Celestial Spirits and the Verdant Infusion, which is the Swiftman buff. Excuse me. Also, incredibly powerful would be the Wild Growth Legendary. I don't actually know if this works with Celestial Spirits, so I'm assuming it does, but just hear me out here. If you press Convoke and it casts Wild Growth, I'm assuming that that Wild Growth has a 40% chance to make your next rejuves and regrowths spread to 4 people. I'm assuming that's true, but I don't entirely know. But if it does work in, synergize with each other, then that's an incredibly powerful effect that I think we need to pay attention to. The Swiftman one, like I said, is really, really amazing. And then for Raid, the Rejuvenation one is going to be just as good. It's just as good, guys. The Rejuvenation one is solid in Raid. I think combining any of these legendaries here, even the double Life Bloom one, with Celestial Spirits is going to be incredibly powerful for Druids moving into 9.2. In Mythic Plus in particular, the Swiftmen build is really fun, guys. If you haven't tried it yet, if you're stuck playing with like Incarn all the time, I understand why you do that, and it's fine. Incarn is incredibly powerful. But do me a favor and just take a look at Soul of the Forest, because it's really, really powerful and really fun to play around with. And in 9.2, when you get to combine it with the Convoke the Spirits on a 1-minute cooldown, it's going to be absolutely bonkers. So let me know what you guys think. Write some comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking of the Resto Druid stuff. Again, I'm just getting back into the Resto Druid, so I'm sorry that it was kind of clunky, but hopefully I explained all the different interactions well enough for you guys. I think there's going to be some really fun and exciting builds for Resto Druid in 9.2, primarily with Convoke the Spirits. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.